Hello. This video will show you how to download aggregated transactions report from the DTS. So let's get started. After logging into your account, expand the left side menu and click on the Report button. This is the place to generate and download the report, including all incoming and outgoing transactions with full object data. The report will be downloaded as an Excel file. You can set filters. Which transactions do you want to include in the report in this area? Created from is a date field, which you can use to set the earliest creation date of the transaction. Created to is a date field where you can enter the last creation date of the transactions you would like to see in the report. For example, if you only want to see transactions created during last year, you can enter 1st of January 2019 and the 31st of December 2019 over here. If you don't want to add any time filters, you can leave these fields blank and just download the report by clicking here. Depending on how many transactions you have, the download might take some time, even up to several minutes. You can see that the system is generating the report if the loading symbol appears on your browser tab. However, you may still continue doing other tasks in the DTS while the report is being loaded. Just make sure that you don't navigate away from the radix tree. Once the report is ready, it will automatically download. So let's open the report. This is a report with sample data. The report includes multiple worksheets: incoming transactions, outgoing transactions, transaction batches, and sheets for data supplements. These are objects like DBSD forms, SREG, or attachments. Let's take a closer look at each worksheet. The first one is incoming transactions. It includes all transactions that you have accepted from your suppliers. Each transaction has a unique ID. This is called transaction GTS ID. After the transaction name that users fill in, we have multiple system-generated fields. This includes seller name, seller certificate code, buyer name, which is always your company name in that worksheet, your certificate code, and the transaction status. Invoice date is the date of the actual invoice that your supplier sent to you. In some cases, it can also include other sales document date. For example, waybill date, if the invoice is not available at the time when the transaction is sent through the DTS. Certificate transfer date is a date when the transaction was accepted by you in the DTS. Total tonnage is a sum of transaction batch tonnages. This can be different from the invoice tonnage. Invoice tonnage is something that the user manually enters to the transaction. Number of transaction batches is showing you how many transaction batch objects are related to this specific transaction. And lastly, I want to point out invitation date. This is the date when your supplier sent you the transaction, so not to be mistaken with the certificate transfer date. The transfer date was when the transaction was accepted. Invitation date is the date when it was sent. We also have the old GTS transaction ID field available. This is showing you the old ID from DTS version 1.0. Let's now move forward to outgoing transactions worksheet. This worksheet includes the same data columns that the incoming transaction sheet had. The difference is that this is showing you the transactions that you have shared to your customers and also the transactions that you have shared to non-certified buyers. Note that when you have reshared incoming transaction, then this transaction gets a new transaction ID and you will not find matching IDs from incoming transactions and outgoing transactions worksheets. Now let's move forward and open Transaction Batch Data worksheet. This includes a full list of batches, including the ones related to incoming transactions and the ones with outgoing transactions. Just like transactions, also each transaction batch has a unique ID. If you want to find the batches related to a specific transaction, you will need to copy the transaction ID from the transaction worksheet and find the match or matches on this one. So let's do an example. I will go to the outgoing transactions worksheet and copy one transaction ID. Let's also remember that this transaction includes a total tonnage of 3031 and includes one transaction batch. Now let's return to the transaction batch data worksheet and find the match from here. We see that we only have one match because we had also one transaction batch related to this transaction, and this includes 3031 tons of SPP compliant pellets. Finally, let's take a look at the transaction data supplements worksheets. These include data from other objects, just like DBST, SURH forms, or attachments. The first worksheet in my report includes DBST form data. The setup of the worksheet is exactly the same as it was for the transaction batch data. All objects are related to the transaction by ID, and all objects have also their own unique ID. The columns available mirror the fields that are visible on the object in the system. So each object data is included in a separate worksheet. In my case, I can see DBST data on data supplement data 1, and on the other worksheet, I can see SPP transaction documents data. In case you are using also other objects, just like SURH forms, you may even have additional worksheets visible in here. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out our other tutorial videos.